Okay. Kumlen and Ablak Gemara, we are up to Moed Katan Daf test Amar Aleph, and we are starting to go through the laws of Avelis. And the last thing we also talked about the role that Shabbos and Yom Tov have and how it impacts on Avelis, the Shiva or the Shleishim. And now we're going to delineate these points a bit further. We'll see later when you break up the 7 days of Shiva, the first 3 days are the most serious. And we know about what you're allowed to even speak, the oval, and then as it goes on, it progresses, it gets easier. So this Mishnah holds that the first 3 days, if you don't have the first set of 3 days in your Shiva, then you didn't really sit Shiva at all. So says the Mishnah, if you had you buried someone 3 days before Yom Tov, and we know that Avelis only begins once you've completed the burial. That's when you change your shoes after you fill the sand and on top of the grave. Is when it's called Stimas Hagoylu. So if you did it 3 days before the Yom Tov, then Botla Heimena Gzeida Shiva. Then comes along Yom Tov, it cancels the rest of Shiva. You already sat your Shiva, and there's no longer any Shiva. Whether Shemoina, what do you call it? And then but Shleishim, you have to then continue counting Shleishim. Whether the Yom Tov is considered part of your Shleishim or the Shleishim, only continues, resumes after Yom Tov, we'll discuss in the Gemara. Shemoina, if you actually sat 8 days before Yom Tov, so you had a full Shiva, and then plus you had one more day, so you started following the rules of 30 days, because remember, 30 days is more lenient than the Shiva. Shiva, wear shoes, all these marital relations, all these other things. In Shleishim, you don't have these rules. Shleishim, you have some rules. You don't take haircuts and go to a simcha and all that. But if you started the 8th day, this is, remember, the opinion of the Chachamim, then Botlu Heimena Gzeida Shleishim, and then suddenly comes Yom Tov on the 8th day, on the 9th day, then that's it. You no longer have the din of Shleishim. The rule is Shabbos Shabbos is part of your Shiva, but it doesn't interrupt it. You continue resuming after Shabbos, nothing changes. And according to some, the reason is because on Shabbos itself, you also follow some of the rules of Avelis. So you just continue all the discrete rules of Avelis you still have to follow. It's only the public ones that you don't. But then you're not allowed to mourn on Shabbos openly. But your Golim, Yom Tovim, have the impact mafsikin, that they stop whatever it is, ve'einon oilin. And what do we mean ve'einon oilin? So Rashi actually has two pshatim, and one of the pshatim of Rashi is very difficult to understand. But the other pshat of Rashi is that if 3 days go by and you had your shiva, that's opinion, you had your shiva already, it comes along Yom Tov, and that's it. It ends the shiva for you. So and what happens is, but if let's say it happened less than 3 days before Yom Tov, then you don't continue Shiva on Yom Tov. You must resume right after Yom Tov because you didn't really fulfill your Shiva. That's the opinion of our Mishnah. Later in the Gemara, we're going to see that even if you sat for 1 hour Shiva, then the Yom Tov completely cancels your Shiva. In fact, it doesn't have to be an hour. In Shulchan Aruch it says that even in the Shach says that even you just removed your shoes, you removed your shoes and put on your other footwear, that's already considered you sat Shiva, and that's enough. So a minute before Yom Tov. Says the Mishnah further, Rabbi Lezer says, while the Beis Hamikdash was upstanding, then Shavuos was no different than any other Yom Tov, and it canceled. But after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and what do you mean? During the time of the Beis Hamikdash, if you didn't bring a korban the first day Shavuos, you have 7 days to bring it. So it's no different than any other Yom Tov. However, when it comes to times of after Beis Hamikdash, Shavuos is just 1 day Yom Tov. So therefore, it's treated just like Shabbos. Now what? That you continue the Avelis right after Shavuos, because it's just like Shabbos. In other words, he doesn't believe the svara we just said before. Actually, there's a big machlekes in the Rishonim whether on Yom Tov you also have to follow the laws of Avelis discreetly. Shalom actually rules that goes like that opinion. So we have to find another reason why Shabbos is different than Yom Tov. Why Shabbos you continue the Avelis and you count it and you resume after Shabbos, and by Yom Tov we don't resume after Yom Tov. And the main reason is, according to them, is because Shabbos, every Shiva has Shabbos in it. And if Shabbos cancels the Shiva, how are you ever going to keep 7 day Shiva? So therefore you have no choice. Yom Tov doesn't happen, it doesn't happen that often, so therefore Yom Tov does cancel. Rabbi Gamliel says, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is treated like a golem. Even though it doesn't have 7 days, it's treated like Yom Tov because it doesn't happen that often, so therefore we don't have, it cancels the shiva and everything else. We treat like any of the Yom Tov. Chachamim say like not like anyone. El Atzeres Kirgalim, they say that Shavuos, even today, is considered like a Yom Tov, which Agmul, by the way, would agree. But Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are like Shabbos. Shana and Kippur, because they're only one day, they are like Shabbos. And the halach is actually like Rabbi Gamliel, that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is treated like a full Yom Tov. And we'll soon see how this whole thing works. Amar Rab says that when we say that Shloshim is cancelled, Gzeidas, Amar Rab, Gzeidas, Botlu, Shloshim, Botlu, Abiyamim, like Botlu. Okay, Shloshim gets cancelled, but still, if, for example, as we'll see in a minute, you're supposed to take a haircut before let's say Yom Tov, you didn't. We're not going to let you take it afterwards. No, it's still floating in the air, the idea of shloshim, and where you're at fault, we're not going to allow you to make any special dispensation. And but the days are still there. And Abshesha said, I feel yaminami, but nothing left in the wings, it's all gone. Now, my time of Yom Kippur. What did Rab mean when he said that days aren't bottled? If we didn't take a haircut, the whole reason why Yom Tov canceled the shloshim is because we want you to prepare for Yom Tov. That's the logic behind it. We want you to be prepared for Yom Tov, so we take away all the obstacles. But you didn't do anything about it. You could have, and you didn't do anything about it. And obviously, you demonstrated that you don't care. If you don't care, then we leave the shloshim in place. So that what? So also the galech achareg, you now take a haircut for entire 30 days, you keep counting until the 30 days are over. Says the Gemara, because what Tanya, and I'll bring you a Bryce to support this, it says, Hakoivis Mace, somebody buries his mace, Shloisha Yamim Kaidul Regel, at least 3 days before Yom Tov. This follows the view of our Mishnah. You need a minimum of 3 days of fulfilling the mitzvah of Shiva before we can say it gets cancelled. But Lehemena Gzeida Shiva. And the Shiva gets cancelled by the Yom Tov, on the onset of Yom Tov. Shemoina Yom Kippur, he's had a full Shiva now on 8th day as well. But Lehemena Gzeida Shloishim. There's no Shloishim anymore. And you take a haircut out of Yom Tov. The im like gilach out of haregel, also the galech achregel. You don't take a haircut before Yom Tov, you cannot take a haircut after Yom Tov as well. So you have a brayso supporting what Rav said. Abba Shol says we don't follow this opinion, the opinion of the first opinion, but because Abba Shol says mutter legalech achar haregel. He says 2 things. First of all, we don't penalize you. There's no shloshim. Finished, and therefore you can go ahead and after Yom Tov, go take a haircut. Just like once you fulfill 3 days, Yom Tov cancel Shiva. Kach mitzvah Shiva vatelas shloishim. That if you fulfill the 7 days of Shiva, comes Yom Tov, it cancels completely shloishim. Shloishim Shiva, says the Gemara. What do you mean Shiva? You say your Abba Shol said that as soon as 7 days expire, Yom Tov cancels. Didn't we just learn in the Mishnah it has to be 8 days because you need 1 day in the 30 days? So we answer what we already learned before. Because Abba Shol holds miktas hayem kekulei. The Yom Hashvi oile lekan lekan. Abba Shol argues on 2 points. First of all, he says even though you should have taken a haircut before Yom Tov, we're not going to penalize you afterwards because Yom Tov canceled completely. It's gone. And the second thing he argues on, you say you need the 7 days of completely Shiva, the 8 days when it begins the 30 days. I say the 7th day, the morning is the Shiva, and the afternoon starts the rules of the 8th day, because mixes Hayem Kekulei. Taisus brings an interesting opinion that wants to say that when we say Shloishim, according to Abba Shol, it's actually 29 days, because day number 7 is actually day number 8, because the morning is considered day number 7, and the afternoon is considered day number 8. Everyone in disagrees, and they say even though regarding the conducting yourself, we follow that day number, the second half of number 7 is no longer Shiva, it's number 8. It's like now it's only Shloshim, but not that it's counted as a day of the Shloshim. Amar Chiza said, which we learned a few days ago. Amar Ravina said, halacha k'Abba Shol. He said the halacha is like Abba Shol. That the 7th day it's mitzvah and kulei, the yeshiva, you stand up in the morning and the afternoon already starts the laws of shloshim. So therefore, if Yom Tov comes out in the night of the 8th day, it cancels the whole shloshim. And furthermore, we said, even the chacham will say you need an 8th day, but we'll agree if the 8th day happens to be in a Shabbos, if the 8th day falls on a Shabbos, then erev haregel. If the 8th day falls on a Shabbat, which is Erev Yom Tov, so even though the beginning of the 30, but you can't do anything for Yom Tov because of the fact that it's Shabbos, and the Moed will follow Abba Shol that the 7 days, the end of the Shiva and beginning of the Shloshim, so you can do whatever you have to do. Erev Moed Galeh Erev Shabbos. Let's get hit with Erev Shabbos. There's an interesting question if you think about it. How is it possible that the 8th day should be on a Shabbos? If the 8th day is on Shabbos, that means the first day of Avelis is Shabbos. How do you ever have the first day of Avelis Shabbos? Remember, Avelis starts right after you finish the burial. If you did it a minute before Shabbos, then Friday was the first day, and then Friday is the 8th day. If you didn't do it before Shabbos, Shabbos is no Avelis. Avelis starts on Sunday because you can't bury in Shabbos. So therefore, how can it be the 8th day? So the Yerushalmi answers. Yerushalmi asks the question. Yerushalmi answers. You finished. You did the whole burial on Friday, but you didn't completely cover it till the goyim came along on Shabbos and covered it. So since Avelis doesn't begin till Stimas HaGoyim, it actually started on Shabbos, began on Shabbos. So therefore, day number 8 can come out on Shabbos. Talking about further, the command was like, "Who do you follow?" Amram said, "Name Rav and Oval." As soon as the people stand up, they depart from him. Command that follows Abashah. This is very important. I'm sure you get to plenty house of Shiva. You see that on the 7th day we daven, and after davening, they say to the Oval that he can stand up now. Maybe over a minute, we take him outside the corner. This comes from the Gemara right here, that the Avelis ends 7th day in the morning, Mixas Hayim Pulak Abashol, but we need the Menachmin, we need that the consolers to come along and to be there, and when they leave, the Avelis ends. So what happens if there's no consolers? According to some poskim, you got to wait till nighttime, because there's no one to take you out of your Avelis. The Ramah says, if you don't have a minion or something in your house, then the general time when you finish Shachris is the time that he can go ahead and stand up. So this is the basis for that. Halach Gabashol, the halach is actually Gabashol, the Yom Shiva on the 7th day, because then Kula is Shiva ends in the morning. And the Chacham who argue Gabashol on the 7th day, when it comes to 30 days, they agree that one mix the Yom Kula. The Amrim is saying mixes Hayom Kula. They agree that on the 3rd day we say mix the Yom Kula. More lenient and will be lenient. Rabbi says halach Gabashol b'Yom Shleishim. He says the other way around. Come to 30 day, halach Gabashol mix Hayom Kula. But the Enel Gabashol b'Yom Shiva. But when it comes to Shiva, we follow Chacham. You need the entire 7 days. Comes along the Doy and they say halach Gabashol b'Zu u'b'Zu. The Doy says that the halach Gabashol is both leniency. The 7th day mix Hayom Kula, and the 30th day also we say mix Hayom Kula. Because the Amar Shmuel from the Doy said, we had it already before, halacha kedivre hamekel ba'avol. Whenever there's an argument by Avelis, we always follow the lenient opinion. So Abba Shol, even though Abba Shol, we'll see more later, Abba Shol was only a yochid against the Rabbin, we're going to follow Abba Shol, and we are going to be lenient, mitzvah yom kikuli on Yom Shiva, and mitzvah yom kikuli on number 30. Says the Gemara, sorry, 1 second. Go to the place. Minallah, and how do you know? Minallah, sorry, Shloishim, Yeminah. Where does the idea of Shloishim come from? We'll soon see where the idea of 7 days come from. Where does the concept of 30 days come from? So the mother says, Yalla, you will now, find over here, see how it says over here that Moshe Rabbeinu told Aaron and his children when Mother Rabbi passed away, he says, I don't want to let your hair grow, what all of that I do. Okay, so use the word tifru. Uksiv Hasan by a Nazir, it says that all the days of a Nazir, you have to let hair grow. Gadel Peres Aaron, let his hair grow. Mala Halon Shloshim, and we know a Nazir is 30 days long. Afkan Shloshim, so to an Oval has to let his hair grow 30 days. And Rahasam knows, how do you know Nazir is 30 days? I'm going to Masna. Masna said, and we already had this a few times, he says that Stam Naziris is Shloshim. A Nazir is generally 30 days. How do we know? My time of life. Omaka. Says the Pasuk, Kodesh, and the days of the Nazir, he is considered holy. It says the word Yeh is Gematria plus Yud, and Yud, 2 Yuds is 10, 10 is 20, and 2 Hays is 10 is 30, plus Nav is 30. And that's how come another 30 days, and therefore Avelis is 30 days. We compare it to another. And there's a homach like this in Poskim that if we compare it to another is not allowed even a comb is there because it might pull out some hair. To an oval who has to let the hair grow, and 30 days, or by parents until people say your hair is too long, he's allowed to use a brush or a comb that pulls hairs out. Some say no, you're learning from a nazir. Others say very different. By a nazir, there's an avera to pulling out your hair. So if you cut your hair. So a comb which is inevitable, or a brush that's inevitable, you pull out hair, you're not allowed. But when it comes to what we call avelis, it's not there's an avera to pull out a hair. Avera is taking a haircut to beautify yourself. You have to be in a state of mourning. Pulling out a hair too is not going to make it any nicer. So therefore you're allowed to. Take a word further. Everyone agrees. This is following the view that you do full 3 days. The third day we don't follow mitzvah kula. There you need a proper full 3 days. You're not allowed to bathe yourself or anything else until nighttime. You need 3 complete days. So according to Rashi, he takes it literally 3 complete days, which means you can only take a bath on Yom Tov. How can you take a bath on Yom Tov? So Rashi says it's talking about cold water, or wait till Chalamayit, or you're just washing your hands and your face. Others say Ad Ed means late afternoon. They asked me coming, they were saying halach is actually very sure that the 3 days you have to have a full 3 days before Yom Tov. I actually found that Papi and Rav Papa and Rabbi Yeshua all sing together, because we know that Papa and Rabbi Yeshua are best friends. The Yasri Amri was saying, how come everyone agrees? Came out that the third day of the Avelis is the end of Yom Tov. Also the Chitza there, you have to wait till night. But I have a question. What about Kivrei Beregel? What happens? You actually buried someone on Yom Tov. So you did not even begin sitting Shiva. We just said regarding Shiva, then you start right after Yom Tov. So what about Shleishim? Do you start counting the Shleishim right after Yom Tov as well? Or at least as far as Shleishim is concerned, you start straight away. So after Yom Tov is over, you minus the day, you deduct all those days of Yom Tov that you were there. So he said, the regel part of the 30 days or not? My question is as follows. Let me Shiva like of course it's not part of the Shiva. Why not? The no good makes a Shiva regel. On Yom Tov there's no Shiva, because Yom Tov time of Simcha there's no Shiva. Machlekes, I told you Rishonim whether at least discreetly you have to or not, but definitely openly there's no mourning. Because some of the things of the Shleishim you're not allowed to do a Chalamayit. And because you're not doing Chalamayit, true, because of Chalamayit, the fact that you're not doing it, so you are observing some of the rules of Shleishim. So maybe we can say that Yom Tov discharges some of those days of Shleishim. Because you follow the laws of Shleishim and Yom Tov, because on Yom Tov also you're not allowed to wash, you're not allowed to launder, you're not allowed to iron, and so on. Amalei said, Abbas responded, that no, that since you're not doing it because of Avelis, so the Shleishim doesn't kick in until after the same time as Shiva kicks in, the Shleishim kicks in. That's what Rabbi's opinion is. We'll see later that Allah is not like that. I asked Rabbi a few questions. Number one is Hakoiver. Interesting. So he asked Rabbi a question. He already had a whole bunch of brises to prove that Rabbi is wrong. So why ask him the question first? Why didn't the Bible just come along and slay the psak? But I believe that the Shleishim is included. Does start from the beginning of Sukkot. But anyway, this is the format. If you bury, it makes 2 days before Yom Tov. You didn't have a full 3 days. And remember, which means that Yom Tov does not count in Shiva. So what do you do? So you can resume the Shiva after Yom Tov. But you're allowed to have other people do work for you. You're allowed to work in your own house. You know, before we live, you're allowed to. But here, because it's already a number of days intervening between the first part of Shiva and the second, we're a bit more relaxed, and you're allowed to work for you discreetly in your own home. The Rabbi is asking that what this thing of saying Hamakim Nacham, which is as the Rambam points out over there, the mitzvah of Nichem Avelim after Yom Tov you don't have to, because during Yom Tov they're allowed to go and if they see it Oval, they're allowed to go ahead and knock Oval. So as far as Nichem Avelim is concerned, Yom Tov is still part of the Shiva. So they completed their 7 days during Yom Tov. So after Yom Tov, even though Shiva resumes, but not the Nichem Avelim part. The Ein Rabbi is asking where the public doesn't have to no longer go to him and be Menachem Oval. Why? Because they did it during Yom Tov. Shekran is asking by Beneg. The rule is as follows. The Bryce says, we'll get to the Bryce question in a minute. The rule is kosher humushim of anything to do with Avelis. Since on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to plow, you're not allowed to display any form of Avelis, is a regular Mafsika. Yom Tov stops it, and therefore you resume. If you didn't have 3 days, you resume after Yom Tov. But anything to do with what the public has to do, they still continue that way even during Yom Tov. They ain't regular Mafsika. It continues throughout Yom Tov, and then you finish your 7 days, it's over. What about Kivru Shloishim? What happens? Okay, so here's another case. What happens if let's say towards the end of Yom Tov, let's say the last 3 days of Yom Tov, the last 3 days of Yom Tov. So even the outsiders didn't discharge the 7 days of Lichma Veilim because they only died the last 3 days of Yom Tov. So Kibru Shloishi Yamim B'Sefer Regel. So Moina Shiva Achar, as far as Shiva is concerned, he needs to have a full 7-day Shiva because he didn't study a minute of Shiva yet. So Yom Tov there's no Shiva. But as far it has to count the 7 days after Yom Tov. What about when it comes to Nicham Avelim? How many days do they have to do a full Shiva as well? No. They already had 3 days from when the person passed away and was buried and interred. They already have those 3 days that they can do Nicham Avelim. So they only have 4 more days after Yom Tov to continue. They only have 4 more days to continue. So he says here, so what do you call it? The first 4 days after Yom Tov, Rabbi is asking boy, they all have to say Nicham Avelim. What do we see from here? Shloishi Yom Machareni, and Rabbi is asking boy, but the last 3 days of Shiva, the Rabbim don't have to say anything. She cries, ask Kuberegel, today read the Nicham Avelim the last 3 days of Yom Tov, as we said before. But then the Brisa continues. The Regel Oileloi. The Brisa says that the Regel, the 3 days of Yom Tov, Oileloi. What do you mean Oileloi? It sounds like it's considered part of the 30 days. So we see from it clearly that the Shloishim doesn't have to wait for the Shiva to begin, which was after Yom Tov. The Shloishim can begin as soon as the person was buried. Because it says the Regel Oileloi, my lava sefer. We're talking about in this case over here. You're talking about in a case where the person died on Yom Tov and buried on Yom Tov, so that Shiva never started, but Shloishim did start. So the Gemara is a kasha and Rabbah. No, Aresha. This is talking about the case if you know. This is talking about if you already had 2 days before Yom Tov already started the Shiva, then the Shloishim goes through out the entire Yom Tov, because you already started the Shiva. And therefore, even though Shiva is going to stop, is going to be interrupted by Yom Tov, but you didn't have 3 days, so you have to resume after Yom Tov. But as far as Shloishim is concerned, since you started the Shloishim before Yom Tov, you continue. But your question about you was that you never started your Shiva because the person passed away on Yom Tov itself. What happens with Shloishim? That we haven't resolved. So Abai says, further, I have another question. It says in the Bryce even clearer, Regel that Yom Tov is considered part of the 30 cases of how. What happens? That you buried it in the beginning of Yom Tov. You buried it in the beginning of Yom Tov. Right? So covered because the Regel Moine Shiva Achra Regel. He buried in the beginning of Yom Tov, so Shiva never started. So you count your Shiva after Yom Tov. Other people do your work, and your avodim shvachas can work. They're basically can work the street in your house. Again, we're more lenient because you already went by a number of days. The Ein Rabbim is asking by the public don't have to do any Nicham Avelim because they had the entire Yom Tov to do Nicham Avelim. Shekran is asking by the Regel. Remember, he passed away at the beginning of Yom Tov, so there were 7 days. They already said to Nicham Avelim. The Regel Oileloi, and then it says, and the Regel Oileloi. So we're talking about that the person passed away on Yom Tov. Right, the person passed away at the beginning of Yom Tov, and it says it clearly Regel Oileloi, light to him, to the oval. I see clearly the Shloishim already started as soon as the person passed away. Yufta, it's a good question. Even if he buried in Yom Tov, the Shloishim already started right away. And it's only the Shiva that starts after Yom Tov. So to Rabbi said to Rabbi's son, Afilu Kavre Beregel, even if you buried him on Yom Tov, the Shloishim starts straight away. Okay, this ends today's Gemara.